Aloha and welcome to A Course in Miracles. We've been looking at healing and forgiveness, and we've been looking at sickness. And today we're going to talk about heaven. Lesson 138, Heaven is the decision that I must make. In this world, heaven is a choice. Because here we believe there are alternatives to choose between. We think that all things have an opposite, and what we want, we choose. If heaven exists, there must be a hell as well, for contradiction is the way we make what we perceive and what we think is real. So basically, we believe we're living in a land of opposites, that everything has a contradiction. So if there's an up, there's a down. If there's a heaven, there's a hell. If there's a happy, there's a sad. But creation, real creation, it says, knows no opposite. But here, in this dream that we're living in, is opposition part of being real? With quotes, real. It is this strange perception of truth that makes the choice of heaven seem to be the same as the relinquishment of hell. It's not really thus. Yet what is true in God's creation cannot enter here until it is reflected in some form that the world can understand. Truth cannot come where it could only be perceived with fear. For this would be the error. Truth can be brought to illusions. Opposition makes the truth unwelcome, and it cannot come. So this is kind of a thing about heaven and the ideas in this book. We always have to welcome them. We have to welcome the truth. It doesn't impose itself upon us. And the thing is, we have to get to the point where we are not afraid of the truth. And that's the reason we're doing this workbook for students, is to overcome so much of the fear that this world and this egoic system has taught us and conditioned us with. What is true in God's creation cannot enter here until it is reflected in some form the world can understand. Truth cannot come where it could only be perceived with fear. For this would be the error. Truth can be brought to illusions. You always bring illusions to the truth. Truth isn't brought to illusions in order to make them real. But illusions are brought to the truth to dissolve because they're not real. Opposition makes the truth unwelcome, and it cannot come. Choice is the obvious escape from what appears as opposites. Decisions lets one of conflicting goals become the aim of effort and expenditure of time. Without decision, time is but a waste, and effort dissipated. It is spent for nothing in return, and time goes by without results. There is no sense of gain, for nothing is accomplished, nothing learned. You need to be reminded that you think 1,000 choices are confronting you, but there's really only one choice to make. So it's really not complicated. There's only one choice we have to make. And even this but seems to be a choice. Do not confuse yourself with all the doubts that myriad decisions would induce. You make but one, and when that one is made, you will perceive it was no choice at all. For truth is true, and nothing else is true. That's a concept that we'll come across again in the Course in Miracles and in the workbook and in the text, that truth is true and nothing else is true. So what isn't true can never be true. There is no opposite to choose instead. There is no contradiction to the truth. What isn't the truth, basically, doesn't exist. So it's really not a choice, because you're just choosing nothing. So really there's only one choice, and that's the truth. Choosing depends on learning, and the truth cannot be learned, but only recognized. I love that. Truth cannot be learned, but only recognized. And in recognition, its acceptance lies. And as it is accepted, it is known. But knowledge is beyond the goals we seek to teach within the framework of this course. Ours are teaching goals to be attained through learning how to reach them, what they are, and what they offer you. Decisions are the outcome of your learning, for they rest on what you have accepted as the truth of what you are and what your needs must be. So in this insanely complicated world, heaven appears to take the form of choice rather than just merely being what it is. And of all the choices you've tried to make, this is the simplest, most definitive, and prototype of all the rest. This one remains the one which settles all decisions. If you could decide the rest, this one remains unsolved. But when you solve this one, the others are resolved with it. So just this choice for heaven resolves all the other choices. For all decisions but conceal this one by taking different forms. So in every decision, we are choosing heaven. But it appears as though we're relinquishing hell and choosing heaven, as though hell were real, something real, an actual choice. But we have chosen the egoic thought system, and we've chosen separation in our mind, in this dream. And so now we have to let go of that choice, kind of admit to ourselves we were wrong, which the ego never wants to do. The Course says the ego would rather be right than happy. But we have to see that the choice we made is really, we haven't chosen heaven, but what we've chosen is nothing at all. So in the same insanely complicated world, heaven appears to take the form of choice rather than merely being what it is. Of all the choices you've tried to make. This is the simplest, most definitive, and prototype of all the rest, the ones which settles all decisions. If you could decide the rest, this one remains unsolved. But when you solve this one, the others are resolved with it. For all decisions but conceal this one by taking different forms. Here is the final and the only choice in which is truth accepted or denied. Heaven is a decision I must make. So we begin today considering the choice that time was made to help us make. That's the reason we have time, to help us make this decision. Such is its holy purpose, now transformed from the intent you gave it, that it be a means for demonstrating hell is real. That was the purpose we gave time, was to demonstrate to us that hell is real. But hope changes to despair, and life itself must in the end be overcome by death. In death alone are opposites resolved, for ending opposition is to die. This is the ego's advice here. And thus salvation must be seen as death, for life is seen as conflict. And isn't it so? I mean, there's so much conflict everywhere. I mean, I've heard life described as you want to thrive and overcome conflict. But this says that the only way out of conflict, according to the ego, is death. To resolve the conflict is to end your life as well. And these, that we've just been talking about, are mad beliefs. These mad beliefs, they can gain unconscious hold of great intensity and grip the mind with terror and anxiety so strong that it will not relinquish its ideas about its own protection. It must be saved from salvation, this ego form of salvation, threatened to be safe and magically armored against truth. And these decisions are made unaware to keep them safely undisturbed, apart from the question and reason and from doubt. So apparently, these mad beliefs that make us not willing to relinquish our grip and our protection on ourselves and relinquish these crazy ideas that the ego has. It says these decisions are made unaware. We're often not even aware that we made them. And this is designed to keep them undisturbed and apart from question and from reason. But in this course, we're going to look and we're going to question. Heaven is chosen consciously. These decisions were made unaware. The decision for hell was made unaware, but heaven is chosen consciously. The choice cannot be made until the alternatives, everything and nothing, are accurately seen and understood. All that is veiled in shadows must be raised to understanding, to be judged again, and this time with heaven's help. And all mistakes in judgment that the mind had made before are open to correction, as the truth dismisses them as causeless. Now are they without effects, causeless. They cannot be concealed because their nothingness is recognized. We're still talking about this concept of everything or nothing. We're choosing between reality and truth and or illusions, shadows and lies. And keeps coming back to this. We don't perceive with our five senses anything but illusion based on the thought system that we've made, our thought system in our mind that's creating these illusions. But now the Holy Spirit is taking us through these thoughts, through these seeming effects, through these fears and doubts and all the rest, and showing them for what they are. So we have to sort of go through this. We have to become familiar with the ego and all of its deception and see what we've really chosen when we chose the ego to be our guide, and before we can transcend it and make a different choice. And that's another thing that you'll see over and over in the Course, that we have to face our fears, face our doubts, face our mistakes, face everything, sickness, everything that the ego is presenting to us, even what the ego calls heaven. We have to face them and judge them again with heaven's help. And then we'll see that they are causeless, and we can easily dismiss them because we see them for what they are. Before that, they still seem like monsters under the bed, real. But once we see them for what they are and judge them with heaven's help, they're without effects because they have no cause. They cannot be concealed because their nothingness is recognized. The conscious choice of heaven is as sure as is the ending of the fear of hell when it is raised from its protective shield of unawareness and is brought to the light. And that's what we're doing. We're bringing our conscious choice for heaven into the light. Who can decide between the clearly seen and the unrecognized? Yet who can fail to make a choice between alternatives when only one is seen as valuable and the other as a wholly worthless thing, a but imagined source of guilt and pain? Who hesitates to make a choice like this? And shall we hesitate to make a choice today? Because we've been going through this Course in Miracles, and we've been looking at pain and suffering. We've been looking at the outcome of the ego's devices, and we're seeing them. We're no longer totally blinded. But if we've been doing this Course, by now we're bringing some of these false things, even if we're in a resistance to this teaching, the unreality is being exposed. And we're seeing what our two alternatives truly are. Everything, love, joy, peace, and nothing. It's not a mixture, but it's all or nothing. So all of heaven or nothing. So that's our only choice. So who can fail to make it once they see that? Oh, wow, that's the choice. That's what I want. We make the choice for heaven as we wake, and we are starting to wake up. And spend 5 minutes making sure that we have made the one decision that is sane. We recognize we make a conscious choice between what has existence and what has nothing but an appearance of the truth. That's all this world, governed by chaos, governed by the ego. This world that seems so real is nothing but an appearance of the truth. It still may be hard to accept that, but that's the truth. And that's what the Workbook of A Course in Miracles is helping us to see. This choice for the world, its pseudo-being is brought to what is real and is flimsy and transparent in the light. And now it holds no terror, for what was made enormous, vengeful, pitiless with hate, demands obscurity for fear to be invested there. Now it is recognized as but a foolish, trivial mistake. All this craziness that we see around us and in our world and sometimes in our life and sometimes in our mind, this insanity is finally seen as nothing, not as sin and you're going to be punished forever and all this, but it's just finally seen as a foolish mistake. The mistake to think the separation from God is even possible, let alone real. Before we close our eyes in sleep tonight, we reaffirm the choice that we have made each hour in between. So each hour, we're reminding ourselves that we're making this choice for the only thing that's real, heaven. Heaven is the decision I must make. And every hour we're going to remind ourselves, heaven is the decision that I make today. And then at the end of the day, we're going to reaffirm that. And we're going to give the last 5 minutes of our waking day to the decision with which we awoke. The decision for heaven. And as every hour passed, we have declared our choice again in a brief quiet time devoted to maintaining sanity. And finally, we close the day with this acknowledging we choose but what we want, what we've always wanted. Heaven is the decision I must make. I make it now, and I will not change my mind because it really is the only thing that I want. That's the only thing I want, heaven. It's the decision I must make. And that's your decision today, if you're doing the course, too. Heaven is the decision that you must make. So, Godspeed to you. God bless you. Holy Spirit, lead you and guide you today as you make this choice between everything and nothing, between heaven and hell. Aloha. And thank you for spending time with me, and I will see you tomorrow.